The idea of this tutorial is that it is a foundation course for all of my other tutorials to be grown from. This is the grassroots knowledge that you will need to understand in order to grow and get the best out of subsequent tutorials. So often my students struggle with the small things. It's understanding studio setup, it's understanding materials, it's understanding our workspace and the simple processes involved. We really want to address some of the most common studio technical and material issues that students find as stumbling blocks. You'd be amazed at how small things can really set you back. Without the knowledge and information coming from somebody like myself, it's decades to understand where it is that you're going wrong and how you can avoid and improve on your current situation. So there is trial and error, and you're free to go through that for the next 20 or 30 years like I have myself if you wish. But in this tutorial I hope that we can skip ahead a few years and get a jump start on avoiding some of those challenges and issues from the start. Without the right information, it's very difficult to grow something healthy in the right direction. If you're not on the right track from the start, if you don't have the right information and the right materials and the right process, the right advice, how can you get the best out of your own painting? This course is not just about providing you with the basics to move on with my other tutorials. This is a foundation course that will put you on the right track for all other work that you do. This is an opportunity for you to gain really valuable insights into the medium and my world of painting, and to bridge some of the gaps between where you are now and where you'd like to be. And I'm here ready to help you with those challenges. One of the biggest struggles that students battle with is their workspace and work environment. It does seem like such a simple thing to consider, but it is an area that's regularly overlooked. As it's such a critical aspect of having a healthy workflow and an enjoyable painting experience, we really need to explore our workspace and the setup a little deeper. Brushes are a common point of failure for many people starting out, and most don't even realise that this is a part of their struggle. What do we use? What don't we use? How do we choose what to buy? Choosing the right brushes will make a big difference to your work. Paper is something I'm asked about so often, and it really can be a never-ending discussion and an overwhelming prospect for many starting out. In this lecture I discuss my own preferences, and although it's a bit like choosing a best friend for another, I point out many things that you will want or need to consider when choosing paper for yourself. The humble water jar? Perhaps, but it is actually quite important. So let's take a quick look at this topic and make sure that the water jar you're using is going to serve you and your brushes well. Tissues are so essential, but they are so easily overlooked. So let's take a closer look at this topic too. We take a closer look at the important role of masking fluid in the watercolour painting process. And although it doesn't feature too highly in my work, it's really important to understand masking fluid's purpose, potential and use. Because when it's used correctly, it's such a wonderful material. Our selection of palette is critical. Beyond the palette itself, understanding the physical layout and establishing an intimate knowledge of our palette becomes as important to our workflow and process as perhaps our fingers themselves. Using our palette is a certain kind of art form in itself, and it's extremely important to know what to look for. What could be more important than our paint? In this lecture we take a closer look at paint, the paint quality, characteristics, troubleshooting, colour families, paint selection, and what to buy and why.
We experience a lot of problems and frustrations and certainly waste a lot of money when we don't get our paint selection right. So this lecture helps you to make a better informed selection. My approach to colour and how I use it is quite a theory-free combination of logic, simplicity and instinct. Don't let colour theory confuse you. Just let yourself fall into the feeling of this medium and you'll quickly fall in love with it. This lesson is instinct articulated for you as a first step. The palette and pigment layout is a critical relationship that must be intimately understood and considered. This lecture helps you understand the basic principles of my work processes and helps you prepare your palette as practically and efficiently as possible. Here I seek to explain my approach to colour use, the relationships between different colour families as I see it, and I demonstrate how this relates to your palette layout and use for the greatest comfort and success. The collecting reference process is half the fun. Where do we start? What are we looking for? What do we need to create a painting for ourselves? There are plenty of things to be mindful of in this process. It is not painting in itself, but it is everything to do with painting. It is the soul, the connection, the spark, and the information that we build from. If we don't get this stage right, we have nothing worthwhile to create. Have you ever heard of the comment, seeing the world through the eyes of an artist? This is exactly what this process is. It is the origins of our inspirations. From inspiration, we start to form and create a physical painting. This process is about maturing the seeds of our thoughts to substance. What happens after the reference collection process? How do we transform what has inspired us, our ideas, our images and drawings, into a physical painting? The drawing and image transfer process is so critical to successful outcomes in our work. Understanding the process will not only help your work out of sight, it will improve the efficiency of your painting process as well. In this tutorial, we explore the processes involved in making this happen practically, cleanly, and thoroughly. Choosing colour for a specific subject, painting, or element can be really challenging, especially when you're starting out. There are no firm rules in my book for colour. I just love and use them all, and I know that you will too. But let's be practical. Let's find a strategic starting point and a process that will help you to get started in the right place. This lecture covers simplifying the colour selection process and how to narrow your colour selection down to a manageable, appropriate, digestible palette for you to work from. Textures bring diversity, emotion, and interest to our painting. One of the best things about watercolour is the remarkable textural qualities that come naturally with this medium. The variations we can achieve just by adjusting our balances, mixes, the movements of our hand, and our timing are endless, and it's imperative that we learn to understand this nature, the qualities and potential of this medium so that we can harness it to our greatest advantage. There are so many textural effects we can achieve in watercolour. So in this tutorial, we take a look at some of the most important approaches for you to explore and have fun playing with. There are plenty of approaches to watercolour painting, but in this tutorial we look specifically at my staple diet for painting techniques and everything you'll need to learn to create realistic and botanical watercolours. I take a look at the three fundamental areas that I work with: washes, glazes, and dry brushing, and I demonstrate how these techniques can come together to give you fantastic final results. These are all the topics that I will cover in this tutorial.
This may be the most important tutorial that the development of your own watercolour ever sees, and I really hope that you'll join me on this journey.